Now, are you excited for the panel? Yeah, we can do better than that. Are you excited for the panel? Brilliant. Now, our panel are waiting in the wings, ready to join us. They are corporate leaders, all with special expertise in diversity, equity, and inclusion. Please welcome to the stage Yvonne Thompson, CBE, founder and CEO of ASAP Communications and president of the European Federation of Black Women in Business Owners. Welcome. Yeah. Next up, please welcome Christin Bøsterud, Managing Partner at EY Norway and Nordic Chief Sustainability Officer. Welcome. Thank you so much. Please welcome Kamilla Sultanova, Diversity and Inclusion Expert, keynote speaker, and longtime supporter of SHE. Welcome to the stage. Hi. Yeah. We're being live streamed. And finally, I wasn't expecting you to do that, that's great. Seljevoll, Managing Partner at Tietoevry Tech Solution Services, a SHE partner organization that focuses on creating technology that impacts the world positively. Thank you so much for being here. Great, we have a brilliant panel of strong women that are making changes in the business world. Firstly, thank you so much for being here. Now, Yvonne, I would love to start with you. You've had an incredible career bringing about change in the workspace. We've had a lot of positive changes, but where do you think we are lacking? Where do we need to go next?
Well, first of all, thank you. It's great to be back for my 4th time at the SHE conference. And thank you to those of you who've come up to and said hello from last year and previous years. This is such a huge topic, and I wish we had a little bit longer to talk about it. But for me, if we're really looking around getting change or making change within the corporates, first and foremost, we really have to prioritize what it is we want. You know, what are the strands? Do we want all of the strands? Are we lacking in certain strands of diversity? We have to have clear goals, make sure they align with the values of the company. But also, one of the things that really upsets me when we start talking about the fact that companies are now being more diverse and sometimes they talk about diversity just around women. They do not consider all the other intersectionalities. In particular, for me, race. Every time I come here, I talk about race. But, you know, I've seen a lot of companies, a lot of corporates ticking the box by saying, oh, we've got a new head of HR or a director of inclusion, diversity and inclusion, who just so happens to be female and black. And that's great, but what they don't do, they do not give the value, they do not give the economic value to the position. Quite often these people have a position and a title without teeth. And until that changes, nothing else is going to change. You need the money to back it up. I'll stop there, otherwise the others won't get a chance.
No, but really quickly, and what does teeth look like? Is that the power to bring about actual change within organizations? It's about the funds to put initiatives in place? What would that look like on a practical level?
It's all of the things that you've just said. It's all of those things that you've just said. You know, quite often I talk to new heads and I think, oh, they've got a black guy. Oh, they've got a black girl. Oh, they've got a gay guy. You know, and you go and you talk to them and you ask for something that you know, or you offer something that you know is going to make a real change, and they agree, but they've got to go one up. They can't make that decision. They can't, especially if it's a financial decision. So for me, you know, with that position should come authority.
Right, and budgets as
and
well.
Budgets, well, budgets, yeah, authority, absolutely.
And not needing to maybe go up to higher up bosses that maybe don't understand.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so if you're a black woman and then you have to go to a white middle-aged straight man to talk about, I understand that. And can you talk a little bit about intersectionality really quickly? Because I think it's a phrase that I used it in my introduction. We talk about intersectionality a lot. Can you just define what that is for people in a really easy to understand way?
Well,
I should have done that in my talk. I apologize.
He waited to ask the difficult question.
I wanted the expert.
To someone else. So for me, when we talk about intersectionality, as I mentioned before, you can have diversity, you can have a white female, which the gender part of it. But the intersectionality comes with that whoever gets the job, if they're female, are they black? Are they, they can have the intersectionality of race, of neurodiversity, all the different strands of diversity. I mean, you can look at me here, but I can have a lot of those, streams without you knowing. I might be neurodiverse in some way. I might be gay. There's lots of things that you can't tell by just
There's multiple layers of who we are.
Yeah. Jump in, please.
What does intersectionality mean to you? Because I think it's really interesting.
Well, it is beyond what we see in the face value, right? As a woman, you can be queer, you can be from poor social-economic background, all those things. You could be disabled. So all those little multiple layers which neighborhood you come from, there are so many ways. And culture, right. This is intersectionality is going beyond the face value of people.
So then it's not just about box ticking, it's about seeing people in the fullness and complexity of their identity.
Absolutely.
Great. Now, Christin, you've been working in this topic for a really long time, incredible achievements. What are the main challenges that you see
I think
tackling this subject in the workplace?
Picking up on the previous comment, I think we have a tendency of sort of, when we're looking for new leaders, it's sort of rounding up the usual suspects. The phrase from, Casablanca. Even when you use recruiters, they have sort of the standard list. And I think we just need to move away from that because, this is sort of a bucket of issues. It's, conscious or unconscious biases. It's stereotypical things, It's like sort of the mold for leadership. Sort of standard, at least in our nick of the world, it's supposed to be white male, if you look at the leader. And moving away from that and challenging that in an inclusive way, of course, because we are talking about an inclusive way of, supporting more diversity into leadership roles. Personally, I think it's mind-boggling that we are incapable of doing this because we have research on our side. There are stopped coming papers now saying that it's dangerous to have too many females at the board level. They actually issued that back in 2004 when we introduced the quotation rules in Norway for boards. And it's accepted at this point that this is actually good for business, and of course, it's the right thing to do. It's socially right. If you've approached it from a moral, ethical point of view, it's the thing to do. And it makes sense also from, a business point of view. And if you look at where the world is today, with the whole ESG agenda as an issue, environmental threats, we have war, ensuring also that we have a more diverse community, setting the rules for the next layers, for correcting where we are actually heading. It's a no-brainer. Sorry.
It's a no-brainer. Well, I think it's really interesting thinking about the ethical thing, that it's the right thing to do as moral people. But just even if you have your evil business hat on, economically, it just makes the best sense. So many studies have proved that if you have a diverse, inclusive workforce, they're happier, they're more efficient, you make more money, you connect to a wider, bigger audience, you have a diversity of thought, which is really important. Like in England, lots of boardrooms are made up of the same white guys that went to the same school. So if they're brainstorming, they're just going to have a very narrow point of view and thought.
It's a bit like our government.
It's a lot like our government. It's a lot like our government. Now, Kamilla, when you're consulting with businesses, where do you find the most resistance to implementing some of these ideas that we've been discussing?
So I work with public organizations, actually.
Okay.
And the resistance is usually, the threat of merit threat and status threat, and chronically underfunded day issues. And there's two camps in Finland for the moment, is those which are international talents. You know, you get paid, good paycheck, you get relocated, red carpet experience in Finland, country, the happiest country since 2018. And then you have those which have to be integrated. So imagine if I told you it takes 15 years for an immigrant woman to get on the Finnish job market. From the day it comes. This is unbelievable. Wow. Of course, there are differences of education backgrounds, but this just to say that we need to have representation in how integration is done. You talked about, Yvonne, of authority. Mm-hmm. So it's, and one of the ladies who works with me on this field, Olivia Kumpula in Finland, she says, so the integration happening in Finland is like men teaching women how to breastfeed. I mean, but she's right. So please, guys, we are so here, guys and ladies, everyone who doesn't define themselves as such. The integration is taxpayers' money, and it has to be human-centric, best family support for anyone, regardless you are best paid IT, the game tech developer, or you're a nurse who just came from Philippines and want to get your family to Finland. So there's three things I see as working across sectors with public, private.
Yes.
I work with cities, municipalities up north and close to Lapland, and they are afraid of difference. They don't know how to be inclusive, because in Finland, to say, hi, how are you doing? Suki in the eye, it's an aggression. And then nobody dares to say hi, but that's the ABCs of being inclusive. So I say the social capital is most important and expensive in the Nordics. How many of you have a foreign friend? Raise your hand. Okay, because you're the woke audience. So my point exactly here is we need to mix up with each other. Mentoring is a structured intervention to meet person who is not like you. I'm a product of mentoring in Denmark. I will always forever my IBM Nana Bale, who really, I did even a TED talk about it. So volunteering, mentoring, and companies, I invite you to invest in your own mentorship program, because these public-driven organizations, they give you a promise. 2-3 years, boof, money gone, another European funding to do something else. So second thing after social capital is to have this representation in the political positions. Political or professional unions, those who are speaking the talk with experience and expertise, yeah? And the third one, I want to say, is how we look at future of sustainability. So I want to talk about my previous experience. I'm born and raised in Uzbekistan, was in Denmark for 12 years, and worked in shipping companies. I'm a communication graduate. So working in a shipping was amazing, because I come from a culture where I'm not allowed to look man in the eye. Imagine that. And being like 20% of the women on the operational floor, I was so empowered. And it's like, hey, I am so here, right? So, but shipping companies is most conservative, and now they have very much regulated by IMOs how to go green, right? Greener supply chains, greener and cleaner. So they have the IMO behind their neck, breathing. So they are going for the environmental shift. But what happens to the people? How do we promote the well-being, safety of diverse, intersectional women, people who work on the shipping company? So I would call in for the same type of social sustainability rather than just environmental sustainability for all companies. So it cannot be that we are so ecologically, environmentally, so woke, as in businesses, but not really caring for social governance. Mm-hmm. So I want to quote the theater in Finland. Thank you. Storytelling theater in Finland, made up by all the immigrants. They share their stories of their meeting Finland, and they say, I am so here. The people who want to feel ownership of Finland, who want to feel recognized, who want to be heard, valued, and seen. So for me, working with artists is the way to translate day, which is so much, again, merit threat and status threat, is to welcome everyone on board with dignity. So use artists to help us work, and companies fund our work.
Cool.
I Evie,
yes.
I would love to bring you in here. So, Tietoevry,
Yeah.
am I saying it right?
Yeah,
Terrible
perfectly.
with all the Nordic pronunciations. I apologize to everyone. You're transforming business tech in the Nordics, and you're creating better connectivity on a global scale. What have you had to take into consideration in terms of diversity, equity, and inclusion when facilitating enhanced global reach?
I didn't hear you quite well, so if you can just rephrase.
Yes, so when you're thinking about diversity, equity, and inclusion,
Yes.
and you're working on a global scale and connecting people, how do those two interplay together?
Wow, yeah, and just to start with, to listening to you guys, and also from the last session, it's very much important topics, and I got emotional when I'm listening to all the stories, because it's a huge gap of what we are saying and what we are doing. And I think one of the topics that we haven't talked so much about is this gender. That gender is also a key challenge globally. And we have conducted a survey now that states that 14% of women is the only one that think of a career within technology, and versus 44% with boys. And why is the reason for that? I think we also need to question how we talk about technology, and not only in the Nordic, but in a global kind of view. Because the reason for not girls taking these choices is that they see it too complex. They see it too difficult, and they see also that you need to have a high degree of grades to get into the positions. So, and I think the discussions is very diverse. We are talking about a lot of topics, and there are several areas that we need to dig into to understand what do we need. And personally, I'm passionate about talking about technology, and with another word, I'm not a technologist by myself, and entered into this segment by accident, I will say. I was going to be a nurse, and didn't do that. So we need to also change the way we talk about technology, so we can have girls coming into this segment.
So then, that's interesting. So then if we need to go even earlier then. So we need to be really looking at earlier interventions in education, because it's fine to come in when everyone's grown up and in the workforce. But if you're looking at something like technology, where people need to be getting that education from a very young age, there's a conversation there around young education and educating young girls.
And we need to think long term. I think we need to start with the kindergarten. Because this is a long-term situation. If you don't get girls into these kind of positions, the solution will be developed by men, largely, in the future. And that will not support the sustainability in the society, or the diversity in the society.
I mean, growing with AI, you've probably seen A Coded Bias on Netflix. And that's like, you know, racist soap and all the facial recognitions that don't recognize color. I mean, it's so urgent to see that women have to be, and also other diverse background people, to be part of creating the technology that we're using today. Otherwise, it's as racialized and packed with the bias that we see in every day.
Yeah, look at medicine. You know, there is still too little research actually going into female illnesses, because that's not sort of sexy to work with within the medicine. And you also have, you know, if you look at technology, women are still, you know, at a high risk of being injured in a car accident. And that's not because we are bad drivers. That's actually because
the cars were designed for men.
The cars are built, It is, you know, the crash test dummies are still, in many jurisdictions, still, you know, based on the male body. And we aren't the same. So you know, that's also quite a challenging part.
That may all change. Come, what's it, carless drivers? Will it change?
Yeah.
Don't know. But just going back to what you talked about, the education from a very early age. Look, our kids, our children are playing with technology almost from, I don't want to say almost from the time they're born, but as soon as they recognize a mobile phone, there must be ways in which we can, especially with girls, start looking at educating them more around technology, more around becoming or getting into STEM or STEAM or, you know, whatever acronym you want to use. And until, I mean, to a certain extent, we have to accept, we can't wait for teachers and companies. We have to accept personal responsibilities. It's as good, it's like, you know, you teach your children manners. Start teaching them and educating them that they can be what they want to be. Right. From the time, especially as soon as you... it's so funny, I've had my grandchildren over from Germany for the past 2 weeks, and I was telling my 12-year-old that when I was her age, these were as big as...
that stage,
thing there.
The box.
And she couldn't believe me. And we looked at some videos on YouTube, and she was like, wow. So I said, you know, you've got this thing in you. This is your power. It's up to you how you use it. And that goes for all young women, everybody in this room and their children. It's up to you.
Yeah, I think, sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I think, you know, the essence of what we are actually discussing is bringing change. Is taking, you know, these bold decisions to actually do something and not wait for the teachers to do this and, you know, make the foundation for us. Because this takes all of us, and, you know, being a bystander and not saying anything is actually being negative.
So being an ally.
Yes, being an ally.
And then future-proofing these changes.
Yeah.
How do we go about doing that really quickly? Because when you're bringing about institutional change or challenging people, I was really interested in talking about mentorships and things like that when the funding goes. How do you keep these positive changes going and future-proof?
Again, I think it's, you know, I think we put so much power in other people's hands. It's up to us as women to demand, to decide what it is we want and demand it from society, demand it from corporates. It's up to us, you know, we have to be stronger than we are at the moment.
I think it's also about recognizing the role of civil society, you know, working moms. There is Mothers in Business International doing a great job to recognize the need of, you know, shaping the education, but also access of moms to technology careers. Then there is also shadowing jobs, you know, shadow a CEO or shadow a person. There are IT camps, I'm sure, Mimikoda in Finland. And there's across European, where every company, let's say if it's a corporate across Europe, they have a target approach. I mean, Dove company always promotes, you know, positive body image, if that's a. I'm sure if you choose it. And also talent pipeline, talent management programs across universities. I work with a business school in Finland. So a lot of Finnish companies, they can't get talent, so they would look at what talent do they need, and then they look at through very strategic cooperation and make universities accountable. Who do we need? How do we go from mentoring to hiring? And you actually can save up to 20,000 euro per person. But I want to mention one thing here. I know this is not 12-hour discussion, but because I'm from Uzbekistan, I also call out our privileged audience here. As women living in the Nordics, we don't think domestic violence is an issue. But remember the Kim Wall murder in Denmark? That was like that sign of misogyny. The Finland is #2 country in the world being dangerous for women and the taboos of domestic violence. And in Uzbekistan, just last Monday, domestic violence got criminalized. Can you imagine? That's an amazing type. And I want to call it up for my activist friends to stand up for the women, 36 million people population, getting threats now that this law has been criminalized, amended, but there's a lot of setback to it. And if we as women think that this is not happening in our backyard, it is happening in Nordics. And also challenge that in your workplace and see how you can make people or victims of domestic violence also feel safe at your workplace, offer support. That's my call for action.
Fantastic. So a closing thought, what are your feelings, Yvonne, for the future of diversity, inclusion and equity?
We've come a long way, but we've got a long way still to go. And as I said at the beginning, unless people who are hired as heads of diversity actually have the authority, both financially, and the autonomy of working with and hiring who they feel are the right people, it's never going to change. And one thing I say as well, we all talk about corporate social responsibility, CSR, corporate social responsibility. I have my own phrase, PSR, personal social responsibility. Culture ad. I mean, there's so many more things. So on to you.
Love it.
Christin.
Personal social responsibility.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. I think, I think we need to stop patting our back, especially in this nick of the world, saying that we are doing so fine because we are, so diverse and inclusive. We still have a long way to go. And I think, as business leaders, we don't need to sit around and wait for legal requirements. We can actually start doing things without having those. We introduced, 50-50 gender balance at board level long before we had, the rules coming. And focusing on, you mentioned also neurodiversity earlier, having more forward-leaning approaches. I'm a typical Norwegian, so I'm overly optimistic.
Good.
And maybe a bit naive, but I think we'll get there.
Fantastic. And Kamilla?
I would say we need to promote more storytelling, to hear each other's stories, and not to be blinded that, oh, I can't relate to that. Yes, you can. Storytelling, playback theater. The other thing is to build those narratives with political leaders. Now in Finland, we're really in a bad trouble now. So we need to build and keep those politicians accountable to build the visions, not only just on country level, but also in Nordic. We're the most integrated region in the world. Well, show me the numbers. How many people are integrating? Who is representing Nordics? We are so here. And the third is for us in Day community not to call out, but call them in. Call people into conversations, build very open and uniting approach, because making people defensive is very tough. And in that sense, we know we are construction workers. There's so much mess around us, but then when this whole beauty comes in, workplace is inclusive, represented, safe, everybody wants to be part of it. But it doesn't get built by night, so we need everyone on board.
Thank you so much. And Evie?
The first thing I will do is to learn storytelling by Kamilla. Because I see that is really important. In addition to that, I think it's on the agenda. We are talking about it a lot, and I meet a lot of leaders also that has it high on the agenda. And in this room, all female leaders and all of this, we have it on the agenda. We talk about it and we discuss it. But we also need our male colleagues to drive the agenda. That is one thing. And the other thing is, I think we need to change the way that we are talking. We are back at the storytelling. And to constantly push our colleagues and the discussions that we are driving into the companies. We cannot forget it and think that it's going to just do it by itself. We need to have it on the top of the agenda, and we need to drive the agenda.
I think it's allyship, isn't it?
Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Can we please give the panel a massive round of applause?
Thank you. I'm doing her thing now.
Thank you so much to Yvonne.
Thank you.
And to Christin, and to Kamilla, and Evie. Thank you so much.
Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh.
Wave, everybody.
Come over, Jack.
There you go.
Photobomb, thank you.
Now.